Hi, everyone. I think we're going to get started. Let's begin. There are some candidates in the room here. Just want to acknowledge them. Shirley Johnson, running for mayor. Running for sheriff. And Dan Isaker, running for did I miss anyone? I don't think so. No. Okay. Good. All right. I'm Michael Cantwell, president of the Democratic Club of Delray Beach, and I want to thank the panelists for coming. I think this is going to be great. I want to thank my cousin David for setting up the mics, Shar, our vice president, for doing such a beautiful job up here, and Bob in advance for monitoring things, because I'm not going to be able to stay. My wife's in the hospital, she's been there since, and you know hospitals, you need to have, you're not going to get service unless there's somebody there making sure that you get it. So, and I've already been threatened by the charge nurse that she was going to have me escorted out if I didn't stop bothering her. So I want to say just a few words about the program tonight. Women are too often the unsung heroes of history. And it seems to me that Black history is no exception to that. And that's why we decided to celebrate Black History Month by honoring the women who made and are making Black history in Delray Beach. Since time and space were limited, we unfortunately couldn't invite everyone we would have liked, but everyone we invited is a hero in her own right. Yvonne Odom, who at the age of 15 integrated Seacrest High School, local historian Ernestine Holliday, and indomitable local activists Debra Walker and Stacey Wright. Commissioner Angela Burns was an educator for over 3 decades, and she is serving as our moderator. One notable omission was Shirley Johnson, who's sitting right here, a 2-term Delray Beach commissioner and current candidate for mayor. That latter role is the reason Shirley wasn't invited on the panel. We felt it not appropriate to include any current candidate for the municipal elections because it could give them an advantage or the reverse. We don't want current politics. I like to call the municipals March Madness to interfere with the celebration tonight. And I'm going to ask, and this is where it comes in, our club's parliamentarian Bob Averack to monitor that it does not. Before turning over the program to Commissioner Burns, I'd like to apologize for having to eat and run. But I know this is going to be a great evening because Bob, our VP, Charlene, my wife and I spent a lovely long lunch last week with the ladies. And as we were wrapping it up, Bob said, "You know, the only problem?" And I said, "Yeah, we're going to run out of time." So let's start the program. I'm going to turn it over to Angela Burns.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I want to thank the Democratic Club of Delray Beach for this invitation. This is my first gig as a moderator, so I'm practicing on you. And thank all of you for coming out to join us. And it should be interesting. I'm very excited about it. As Mr. Cantwell said, I am Delray Beach City Commissioner, but I am also a 59-year resident of Delray Beach. My family's roots go back to 1908, 1909. We really couldn't verify grandmother's birth date. Some said it's 808, some said 09, but she was here. And you know, I've lived long enough to, I was a young kid in the times of segregation, in the civil rights movement, and I got a very early glimpse of life that my parents and the neighbors and friends and relatives lived. And I think one of my earliest remembers is when President John F. Kennedy was killed. I think I was 8 years old, I'm not sure, I think 6 or 8 years old. And it was such a, it just impacted our black communities and the world, but the black communities. And I remember the meetings and the worry of my relatives and friends and neighbors in our community. And I think I actually visited Delray for the first time right after his assassination. I think it was like around Thanksgiving, and we came in December to visit Delray Beach, and I was so excited because I was going to visit my grandmother, and she lived in a city that had a beach. And we wanted to see the beach. And then to our disappointment, we were not allowed to go on the beach because of the color of skin, black people at that time were not allowed on the beach. But luckily, I moved here 5 years later, and the Delray citizens, black citizens, were allowed to go on the beach, so that was one of the first places that I visited. So since that time, it's a place that I continue to visit to this day because it was kept away from me at a very early age, and I never forgot it. Another pivotal point was the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. I think that was my first experience with organizing, being an activist, because I had aunts who, my mother was the oldest of 14 lives, and so I was babysat by my teenage aunts. And there was so much organizing, going to church, meeting after meeting. People were in an uproar, they were afraid. And so I attended many meetings as a 13-year-old that were organizing meetings that were very important to our community. So I think that was where I got the drive and the ambition to be a public servant way back then. So long story short, I have mother of 3, grandmother of 3, 34 years as an educator in the Palm Beach County School District, and let's get this show on the road. Thank you. All right, we are going to start with our historian, Miss Ernestine Holliday. Miss Ernestine, you are a remarkable soul who has woven your life for the very fabric of Delray Beach, a cherished community elder, lifelong activist, and a beacon of wisdom who has graced the streets for over, I'm guessing 7 decades, am I right?
Since back in the 60s.
Okay. Miss Ernestine, I know we've had many conversations, and you can remember a time when you could not eat at the same restaurants, drink at the same water fountains, or attend the same schools as white children in your community. And then in the heat of civil rights battle, you stood tall. They call her pit bull. Stood tall, shoulder to shoulder with other giants in the community. Your memory holds snapshots of segregation and racial prejudice. You have seen it all. A true historian and storyteller, and in the Western African language, it's called Jale Muso, which is a female griot, which is a storyteller. How did your personal experience, Ms. Ernestine, during your lifetime shape your understanding of the resilience of not only black women, but the black people of community and of fighting for civil rights?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have been in Delray since 1947, where I entered first grade at what is now Spady Elementary, was Carver High School. At that time, we were not allowed to cross Swinton Avenue after 5 o'clock. I I remember as a child, Delray did not have but 2 paved streets. Well, 3 really. Atlantic Avenue went from 441 to 818. Fifth Avenue went from was paved only from Atlantic Avenue to what is now Martin Luther King Boulevard. There were no sidewalks. Everyone's mail west of Swinton was general delivery. There were many people that their mail was mixed because they had the same name, same last name, and no related. It only knew who mail it was by the return address. If there was no return address, then they always had to find the other person because they knew them. Delray was small, and everybody knew everyone. So therefore, it was not very hard to find. Even the street to the school was a dirt road. We had, all our textbooks were labeled discarded. Elementary kids were on double sessions. They was on one end of the campus and the high school kids was on the other. But this was the way it was back then. All our teachers looked like us. And they were very interested in us getting an education. And they were not afraid to go tell your parents that you didn't do what you were supposed to do. They didn't have telephones back then, but one thing about it, by the time you got home, they knew. And back then, anybody who lived in the community could discipline kids, we thought it was terrible back then, but looking at today's children and how they're growing up, that was the best thing in the whole wide world. And what makes it so different now? Well, what made me really interested in our community was during the time the beach was being integrated. I was pregnant with my second child. My husband was one of those people that went to the beach. He was one of those that went to jail, but going to the beach was in jail for 2 weeks. Because people with nicknames, and when he went to court, they asked him if he knew a certain individual, and he told them no. But when they brought him out, they said, "Do you know him?" He said, "Yes." He said, "But I don't know him by that name." That meant he went to jail. And they made him stay for 2 weeks without a bond. That was my first taste of being an activist. How can you arrest a person when you didn't bring the person out first? You just asked them if they knew that person. There are a lot of nicknames. If someone would ask maybe, Bob, do you know, maybe said Judy, maybe Judy has a nickname, and they may call her something else. No, I don't know her, but you bring them out. Oh, sure, I know Judy. Why should he go to jail because he didn't know her by her nickname? But that is one of the examples. In fact, there were kids. My daddy was a migrant contractor. My daddy was at work. But he had one of his old, as they called them, the bean buses back then. Because everybody went to the bean field when they were out of school, and some of them had to go while they were in school in order to help parents take care of the families because they were limited. Money's coming in the house. And my brother left school, went to the house, got the bus, and took a busload of kids from the school on the beach. Where Boston on the beach is today, that was a swimming pool that we were not allowed to go to. And they put an out of order sign on that pool for about a week. The next time they went out there, guess what had happened? They had filled it up with concrete. That is one of the things that we witnessed here in Delray. As a, what was the second part?
As a civil rights.
During the civil rights days, when black teachers did not receive the same pay as other teachers. During that time when black teachers went on strike, we protested as parents, other citizens in the community, just like the teachers did. Attorney Bill Holland from West Palm Beach was hired by the teachers as an attorney, and he later hired Thurgood Marshall, who later became a Supreme Court Justice. So these are some of the things that we witnessed growing up and after I became an adult.
I want to back up. I'm not even following my own outline. Ms. Ernestine, I know that Mr. Cantwell gave a little introduction, I did, but could you just give a little introduction and let everybody know who you are? And then I'm going to go.
Okay.
Follow my own line.
I'm Ernestine Holliday. I'm the member of the Set Neighborhood Alliance. I serve as president of Westside Heights. I'm also a member of the coalition, which is part of WALK, the West Atlantic Redevelopment Coalition. And just community involved. I sit at the elders table, and I'm just involved in whatever we need to do. And I have also been an active member of the historic documentary of the black community, which is now on display at the William College down by the Spade Museum.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wright, would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Stacey Wright. Well, I don't have a lot to say about me. I am a member of the Delray Beach CDC, the SAT Coalition, the SAT Neighborhood Alliance, the Elders Table, Community Gatekeeper, I call myself, and an active community resident. But most importantly, I am a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother.
How long have you been in Delray?
I've been here, oh gee, you're gonna make me tell my age now. Okay, 65 plus years. I've been in Delray Beach 65 plus years. I was not born here, but I was raised here. And my parents came out of Valdosta, Georgia. Out of Georgia.
All right, thank you. Ms. Debra Walker, introduce yourself.
Hi there. I am Debra Walker. I am a native Floridian. I was born at the hospital at Florida A&M University, and I believe at about 3 years old is when my mother moved to Delray. She got a job as a school teacher. I'm sure Mrs. Coleman, Clayton L. Coleman, hired her. Okay, so we moved to Delray, and I have lived here. I'm 70 plus years old. I lived away from here for 20 years, and away from here was the Northeast, Boston, New York, DC. I've had my opportunity to live up and down the East Coast, including Miami, which was twisting my arm to get me to go there. But I'm a native Floridian, and I've been here all of my life except for those 20 years that I moved to the Northeast.
And
Hi, Yvonne Odom. I was born in Daytona, right by Bethune-Cookman University now. My dad graduated from there in 1948. My granddaddy graduated from a school called Florida Normal School for Coloreds, which is now which is Florida Memorial down in Miami. And then when my father was called to pastor church in a little old town called Boynton Beach. Oh my God. When I was 13 years old, we moved to Boynton. And then, when I met a young man named Eddie Red Odom,
Yay.
we were high school sweethearts, and I married him. That's when I moved to Delray at the tender age of 20. And I've been here ever since, and I taught here for 45 years, and I've remained active in this community. I have 3 adult children, 7 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. And I've been active in Delray my entire adult life. So I'm happy to be here, and I want to commend the Democratic Party while I'm thinking about it to doing this, because I believe in conversations, and the more conversations we have, the better we can do about each other and understand each other and make informed decisions based on who you are, not the content of that Miller. Okay? Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to Ms. Odom. Ms. Ernestine will come back and ask a question later on. Ms. Odom, you have been dubbed as Delray's version of Ruby Bridges. At the age of 15, integrating Seacrest High School during this era, a monumental task, and those who championed this cause around the country faced numerous challenges. Could you share your experience and challenges that you experienced when you integrated the schools here in Delray Beach?
All right, I'll be happy to. First of all, it wasn't my decision. I'll just take you back. We were segregated. I attended Carver. One of my classmates are here, and the boy she was talking about, her brother, that was my classmate too. And I was very active in my school at Carver, because the black kids from Lake Worth, Boynton, Delray, and Boca all attended Carver.
And Deerfield.
And Deerfield, yeah, even further, because that was the high school. Remember now, Delray always had educated folk. That's why I said we not ordinary Negroes live here in Delray. We come from a long line of educated people. So remember the Brown versus Board of Education, 1954, they had ruled that a prior ruling, Plessy versus Ferguson, which said that segregation was okay. It did not affect the Constitution as long as the facilities were separate and equal. And everybody knows that was a lie. So in 54, the school board, the Supreme Court ruled that separate but equal was inherently unequal. And with all deliberate speed, it said, to integrate the school systems. Fast forward 1961, Palm Beach County had not done anything. Now my understanding, now remind you, I learned all of this after the incident. Here I am, very active in my Carver. I was elected Miss Carver attendant, because anybody who's ever been in a black school back in the day, we did everything royally, you know. So, and I was a star on the basketball team as a freshman. Coach Pompey was my coach. So I was into my school, and I came home from a football game, and my dad nonchalantly says, Bunny, that's my nickname, I filled out some papers for you to go to Seacrest. And I'm like, you did what? I don't want to do that. But the next day I went to school, because remember it's Thursday, and I recall Carver, the black school, played on Thursday nights, and Seacrest, the white school, played on Friday nights, and they did attend each other's games, even though where the black folks sat was segregated. You sat a special section when you came to Seacrest. And so, but they always had that mutual respect. That's what I've always admired about the Delray as a small town. Black people and white people respected each other. Anyway, when I went to school the next day and word got around, everybody was like, oh yeah, you should go, you would be good, you would be good. So I relented. I got a letter, my dad and I, instructed me to come to school mid-morning. Because what happened in Ruby Bridges, everybody know, that was 7 months prior to when I integrated Seacrest. So I tell people, I didn't realize that's what they did, but what the people had done in Delray and Boynton was blocked off the streets, so they were not the spectators. There were no newspapers, there was one photograph taken of me as I exited. The photographer was across the street. And so, now mind you, I didn't know any of this, but that's what I found out later. I also found out much later that Mr. Fulton had called the student body together and told them I was coming. And what he expected of them about me. So I often say, once I found this out, when you have the intention to do the right thing will happen. So the adults who looked after me at that time intentionally made it safe for me. Even though Ruby Bridges, if you talk to her, she had no clue that those people were yelling and screaming at her. And that's the same thing with me. But the resilience I had, and I often said that because after about 40 years, that's when people got the interest in asking me what happened. Because even my kids did not know what I did, because they were like, Mama, why you didn't tell us this? I didn't think it was a big deal. Now we make it a big deal because after 40 years, that young lady, the white young lady that you see, called the Sun Sentinel and wanted to know whatever happened to me. Because remember, I was a black kid in a white school. I was there the whole year by myself. But the custodians and all those people that I know and love, they were there for me. But it taught me such a valuable lesson those 3 years. I remember I was there 3 years. And I learned so much about the opposite race, because those of us who are my age, they will understand that we were dealt a brainwashed job. We were led to believe that what white folks did was all right. They were all smart. They didn't do anything wrong. And here I am, spending 3 years with these same white people. I'm like, but dang, I'm smart than a lot of these kids. So, as I went through my career here in Delray, that's what I learned. And that's what you guys should learn. You know, to understand you're going to know somebody for who they are. I spent 3 years, and I said, if I'm going to integrate, I'm going to integrate. I went to everything Seacrest had. Now, mind you, my boyfriend was still at Carver. So technically, I had a foot at Carver and a foot at Seacrest. I understood how proud the Carver kids were of their school, and how proud the Seacrest kids were of their school. And when they dissolved Carver, we're the only city, I think, that did what we did. We kept Seacrest colors, green and white, and retained the Eagle, Carver Eagle from Carver, and it became Atlantic High School. All the other schools dissolved. Everything came over, new colors, new mascot, new everything. But that tells you something about Delray and how they respected the value that each citizen had in their own community. And when we learn that, that's what we do. And my resilience was something I had when I stepped on the campus. So as a teacher, that's what I tried to instill in my students. That no matter the circumstance, you have to have that resilience built in. And we have to do a better job with our young people. So that, because you know, I grew up without a mom. My mom was institutionalized very young. I didn't know this. All I knew was my daddy and 5 of us. But my daddy had such an influence that resilience was there. So I figured, hey, I'm just going to school. I'm going to do this because I didn't want to disappoint my dad. So, and then I was not afraid. Everybody asked me, was I afraid? No, I was not. But it's something that you got to instill early on in your children. And it doesn't have to be it could be your neighbor, somebody you don't want to disappoint. It could be your grandma. It could be your auntie. But a child has to have that where they don't want to disappoint somebody. And they'll be better adults, because we all can't go to jail. I need somebody paying my Social Security. Right? So anyway, I'll take any questions as it go, because I could tell you a whole lot of things, but I'm going to respect the time, and I'm willing to answer any kind of question, because there's some, things that happened as I was there that were so misunderstood by both races But by me being there those 3 years, it gave me a whole different perspective on human beings. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll come back to questions later. So, Ms. Debra Walker, you have earned the title of Miss Voter Information and Registration in our community. A walking, talking billboard for voting. Since 1920, Black communities have been organizing politically, fighting for the right to vote. They have been met by election-related violence until the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which enabled African Americans to regain access to the ballot box. Black women have been very instrumental in the movement and one of the most active voting blocks in Florida. I was just asking, first, why should we vote? And second, what strategies or initiatives do you believe are the most effective in encouraging grassroots voter engagement and turnout?
Why we should vote. First of all, you heard me mention Dr. Clayton L. Coleman, who was the principal at S.D. Spady Elementary, and she was also my Sunday school teacher. Rosetta Roll was also an influence in my church. The church plays an integral part in our community, or has played an integral part, and continues to play an integral part. Today, 2 young people knocked at my door. They wanted to know who my internet provider was, if I was happy with it, blah, 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 about the internet, which I told them I can't answer. And I says, but I got a question for you. Are you registered to vote? Both of them had to be about 25 years old, and the answer was, I've never voted. I said, what? You've never voted? So I went on my soap opera and my bandwagon about voting, and Rosetta was probably the first person I really saw knocking on doors and getting people out to vote, and that's where I probably got my passion for this whole voting piece was from Rosetta Roll. But I was distraught when both of them told me they had never voted. So the why vote, I'm talking to the choir when I talk to you guys. But the why vote is because we want to be in control of what's going on in our communities, in our lives. I have to bring up, we brought up JFK, we brought up Martin Luther King. I have to tell you the other influence, or the other part that hit us as a Black community was the election of Barack Obama. In our lifetime, we never thought we'd see a Black president. Never, ever, because white people didn't think we were qualified. So the night Barack Obama became the president, and the second time he became the president, we had tears in our eyes, we were shouting for joy, and if I could get people to vote like we voted for Barack, a miracle will happen. But we've got to vote because sitting in this room, Social Security. There's one knucklehead hollering about we don't need Social Security, by the name of Scott, I think his name is. But meanwhile, he's got plenty of money. So we gotta vote because we wanna control what happens in our country, in our city, and we can't wait for the state elections and the national elections. We've gotta vote in this municipal election that's coming up March 9th through 17th and on March 19th. We've gotta start voting at this level because we control, or we want to control, or influence what happens. When I was doing some research today, it said politicians listen to money and votes. And I know they listen to votes because I got asked to be in charge of voting probably 3 years ago by Chuck Ridley for the elders table. I too am a member of the elders table, we all are. Yeah. And he didn't know what a monster he was waking up because no matter what I do, I have a passion for it. I work for McDonald's and I work for Starbucks. They've got a passion for coffee, a passion for hamburgers, and I have that same passion about voting. So this whole voting piece has become a part of my DNA. And my thing is, if you don't vote, don't you dare crack your lips to complain because you either helped decide or didn't decide. But And Angela asked me about strategies. The only strategy I can tell you is to keep talking to folks. Because particularly, I'm gonna say those people under 40, and I got a son that's 34, soon to be 35 this year. And we go round and round the mulberry bush talking about voting. Mama, it's not gonna do any good. And that's the mindset of many youth, many of the young people. But it's not true. It will do some good. It may not be as fast as you guys want it, but it's going to make a difference. Angela Burns is living proof. The first time we ran her, we didn't win. But we didn't take our marbles and go home. And so I'm saying, do not take your marbles and go home. We came right back to the drawing table next time around, and guess what? We got an Angela Burns. So the voting piece is ingrained in me. I've worked for 2 major companies that I learned about hamburgers and I learned about coffee, because I didn't even drink coffee when I went to Starbucks. So that same passion that they bought out of me, voting brings out of me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Ann Stacey Wright. Integration was supposed to improve educational attainment and outcomes for Black students who experience integration. However, that is not all that came from it. For many, integration was a long, painful struggle, and it left impact on many students, parents, teachers as well. Would you please share your experience of finding yourself in the middle of a riot when Black students from Delray Beach was bused to Boca in 1970?
Very. It was, as a matter of fact, it was in May of 1972. We was bused to Boca High School, Boca Raton Community High School. We arrived there and we were told that none of us could get off the bus. There were 3 bus loads of us. None of us could get off the bus. So we was wondering, why can't we get off the bus? Why can't we get off the bus? Well, lo and behold, me, along with 2 of my other conspirators, went to Shirley Bryant and Cynthia Barnes. We happened to get off the bus. When we went on campus, we saw why we could not get off the bus. Because on the walls in big, huge letters were Black students. No, it said, "Niggas go home. We don't want niggas in our school." So me being the person that I am and being very active, I decided I'd go back and let everybody else on the bus know what I saw. And they were trying to wash it off. They were trying to get it off the walls before they brought us in. Well, lo and behold, the bus drivers, they had other pickups, so they had to leave us there. So what they did was they told us to get off the bus. We all got off the bus. We went to the cafeteria. In the process of everyone going into the cafeteria, there was a classmate of mine, Brenda Lane, who was pregnant at that time. I walked with her. We were some of the last students to go inside. There was an officer, and I don't know, some people may know who he is and some may not, that worked for the Boca Raton Police Department, was named Butler. Russell Butler. Okay. He decided that he would take 3 tear gas bombs.
Locked the door with the chain.
Yeah, and threw them inside the cafeteria where we were and locked the door with a chain. So in the meantime, we're all strangling, we all, we don't know what to do, people are panicking and everything else. So if you knew me in the high school days, I probably was about 90-some pounds or whatever. So I decided, you're not gonna hold us in here. And so I took the liberty of picking up a table and sending it through their glass windows and doors. The sooner we were able to get out, we were picked up. Once we were picked up and taken back home, we went to the church. The church played a very important role when we were growing up. It was the place where we could go if we had a problem. It was the place where you can go to have your meeting. It's just the church was really the center of the community. Dr. J.W.H. Thomas, I don't know if anybody knows Reverend Thomas, but he, as a school teacher, he was a school teacher at the time, but he decided he would come and open the church so that we all can gather there and tell our story to our parents and let them know what was happening. Fast forward a week later, there's a knock at my mother's door. I'm in the kitchen. I don't know if you all remember, but you know, we had turns cooking. It was my turn to cook. So I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking the food, and there was a knock at the door. And my mother came and she called me, and I'm like, oh, but I'm cooking. She said, no, come. And then once I walked out there in the living room area, that officer just came up to me and handcuffed me. My mom said, what's going on? What's happening? What are we doing? You can't just take my child and take her any place. Well, fast forward on, not only was I arrested, but Big Danny, what Big Danny's name was? Danny Hayes, yeah. Big Danny and Isaiah Wilson were in the car. They took us to Delray Beach Police Department. Delray Beach Police Department said, we ain't got nothing to do with that. You made the arrest, you take them to your station. So we had to go back to go to their station. Well, Mr. Zach, along with other concerned Ms. Holliday, they went to Delray Police Department. Delray told them to go to Boca. By the time they got to Boca, they was transporting us to Palm Beach County Jail. I was arrested and told that it was for destruction of school board property. I was arrested for inciting a riot. I was arrested for hitting a teacher with, I guess, the table or something. But there were several other different charges that I was arrested for. And to this day, I always remember my mom saying, and you believe in what you believe in, and you did the right thing, and you got my support 100%. And I stood on that. Now, I am known to be a, what do you call me, Miss Odom? Rebel rouser. And I don't know, I may be a rebel rouser, but the thing is, with the school, it was something that I believed in. They tried to expel me from school. They did not want me, Palm Beach County School District did not want me back on their campuses. There was an attorney by the name of Cunningham that was out of West Palm that came in and took over our cases. But it just didn't stop there. It continued where we were sitting in class, there was Jerome Osborne and myself were the only two black students in the class. And they would do, things to try and make us, fight them or make us do something to them. And they were telling us about what their parents said. Their parents didn't want us there. They were afraid that, we were big dummies and we didn't know anything. But and then later they found out that, hey, we are, we're very smart people. There were quite a few of us that were very smart. After my arrest and I was able to go back to school, I tell you, it was different. It was really different because Miss Holliday, along with several other parents, had to come to school with us and be there with us during the day. And it was, sadly, it happened that way. And Commissioner Byrne, you were a student at that time when this. Yeah, it was. But I tell people, if you believe in something, stand up for it and just do it. My thing is just like that, just do it. And there are a lot of things, I'm a rubberizer, even in school. I worked for the city of Delray Beach for 25 years, and that was only because of my best friend, my partner in crime, Mr. Red Odom. He spoke up for me. He said, you know, we're not gonna go by her background. We're gonna go on, she's qualified for the job. And they tell you that your records are sealed? No. And I have been fighting that to get my records sealed, but I've given up now because I'm not working anywhere and I'm retired, so I don't think I need a reference or a background check to be retired. So, you know, so but no, your records are not sealed. And one of the things that we gotta do is that when kids, especially for black children, when they're arrested at a young age, they come out and they say the records are sealed. There's no such thing. We really need to work very hard on that.
All right, thank you. And thank you. And as she said, I was actually a student on the bus that day and corralled into the cafeteria, and the tear gas was thrown in there on us. So, and it is something that it stays with you. It doesn't go away. And having to be at Boca High for 2 years when you knew that you weren't wanted.
Yeah.
So anyway, but people like Miss Ernestine on the campus every day just to keep a watch. Both black and white parents were patrolling the campus every day just to keep our students safe. So it was an experience. So at this time, I will open up questions to any of the panelists that anyone has out in the audience, or if you have a question for either one of our panelists. Yes.
Ms. Odom?
Yes.
Ms. Walker? Ms. Burns? Ms. Holliday? Ms. Wright? Thank you. I'm almost at a loss for words. I'm
We
right
can't
here.
hear you.
Okay, how about this?
Can the, we have another mic.
Yes. Okay, I'll start from again. I said Ms. Odom, Ms. Walker, Ms. Burns, Ms. Holliday, and Ms. Wright, thank you so much. I didn't know most of this. Because I only have one question, I'll split it. We need more of you. So I have a two-part question. Actually, I won't split it. Do you have proteges, other young women who you're teaching, you're mentoring, who will continue the fight because it isn't over? I mean, what you had, of course, was horrible, and too many people, especially white people, think it's over, and it's not. So that's part of it, and with those young people, the students, I'm very involved in the banned book program, and I have a Read Banned Books nonprofit. And I'm very upset, I'm very angry, because our last program, we got adults, we didn't get any kids. And that's because the school officials threatened everybody and they couldn't come, and I didn't have any help. I'd like to know if you are even thinking about ways to deal with the new segregation, which is the banned books, because our black students are one of the two major targets of the book ban. Your history, the great novelists, the great poets. Gone. So, but I'm saying the next generation coming up, people that you can mentor to deal with what I am repeating, I'm going to repeat myself, the new segregation of wiping your history and the reality of your experiences just out of the school system.
I'll take a crack at that. First of all, having discussions just like this, and young men who don't vote. If teachers had voted in the last election, we would not have the current governor that we have. So we all have to take responsibility. But on the individual places, in my own little circle, you'll be surprised how good the circle can be. I can point to one of my former students who's very active now. And we as an adults, that's what we have to do. And your passion that you're doing, you have to continue to do that. Even if it's just 1 or 2 kids in your church, your sorority, whatever you're involved in. Because that's what's gonna take. How it's gonna take it, I don't know. But I learned it from my dad at being an activist. He was very good friends with Rabbi Silver, the daddy Rabbi Silver, not the young guy. But that communication. Tell your story, I tell mine, and hopefully my children and my grandchildren will understand what we're up against. And we're only 13% of the population. So it's gonna take white folks to help us to do this. Good many white folks, and don't forget now, there were a lot of white folks who did march along back in the day. So that's what it takes, what you're doing now, because those people who doing what they're doing it because people like maybe you, and you just doing this as an example, don't participate and don't vote. That's it.
Thank you.
No magic, very simple.
My thing is, we continue to tell our story the way we know it. We don't allow anybody else to tell our story. That is the reason why we have that documentary down at William College right now. We had people like Zach Strong tell his story. Rosetta Rose told her story. Mr. Pompey told his story. We didn't have Mr. Youngblood, who was our first black elected official, tell his story. And there are other people. We had Dr. Bond's son tell his story. We had Herman Bain tell Roy Bain's story. Gloria Bruin did not have a chance to tell her father's story, but she told what his business was. And there are some of us that every school board meeting, we go to that meeting and we say what we know as black history. These are black facts, not fiction. And you know, when we put people up there on that dais, we don't put up there because they're color. We want people that are qualified. Look at records. Look how they voted while they were on that dais. We don't want a popularity contest. We want people that are qualified, whether you're white, black, blue, or purple. You have to be qualified. You just don't get up there and tell us it's raining when you know the sun is shining. So that's what we want. We want our people to learn to vote and vote their conviction of people that are qualified. And that is one of the things that we have to tell every day. You don't tell your history today and forget about tomorrow. As black people, we've got to stand up and don't sit down. You don't blow in, blow out, and then blow out again. You have to keep your course and continue telling your history and seeing what you want to see being done in your community. Because, you know, it starts at home and then it spreads abroad. Because voting in city elections, that's the most important election there is. Because that's where your tax dollars, say whether you get a paved street, you get a house built, or whatever. Everything starts in your community as a black voter.
Thank you.
Like Miss Odom, or unlike Miss Odom and the rest of these guys, I never went to Carver High School. And the reason I didn't go, somebody said it about your parents. I had a parent at Carver High School, and I knew anything that I did would get reported immediately. So I did go to Delray Junior High, my 7th grade year, and I went to Seacrest. So I was one of those products that went across town and My friends and family all talked about the fact that I wanted to be with the white people, but no, I was running from Lucille. That was my deal. But again, like Ms. Odom, I had a great experience. I became the first black cheerleader at Delray Junior High, the first black cheerleader at Seacrest, which at Seacrest, I saw them turn down a young lady the year before I tried out. But I had told football players, if I don't make the squad, y'all ain't playing football. So I made the squad. So it's been a good experience for me. I haven't had craziness.
I just want to tell them, when I went there, all this happened after me, but back to the cheerleading part, because there again, remember I told you I was a very active athlete, so they didn't want me to participate in anything. And I never forget, because I told you I was going to be in everything and do everything. But my Miss Pepperman, she simply said to me, she said, well, Yvonne, the other schools are not ready for you yet. So that to me gave me a very good explanation why I should not, be on the cheerleading squad. And then they didn't do like we did in the black schools. We played other schools. Because I would have been a Tiger Bell if I had stayed at Carl with Mr. Pompey. And y'all know who the Tiger Bells? Tennessee State, the best track teams ever. The gold medal, 1964. That would have been me. But she simply just said to me, the other schools are not ready for you. We would have been playing Belgrade, Pahokee, if I had been on the teams. And then they didn't have, the white girls did not play the sports that the black girls did. So I only had the opportunity to do intramurals. So I sacrificed my Tiger Bell gold medal by going to Seacrest. That's my fantasy.
Like Henry only had 3 high schools to come to. Like high school. One in Belgrade, one in West Palm Beach, and one in Delray.
Another question? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I can speak loud.
If I get it work, I'll do it.
Okay. Do you feel, either one of you can take this question, do you feel like there's still systemic racism now, whether it be at work?
Yes.
Whether it be
Yes.
or like there's only one black seat in Delray Beach, which we heard that numerous times. Me running or not, I heard that numerous times. There's one black seat, and that's not the case in my opinion. So have you been part of systemic racism, or do you see it now?
Yes, it is, but that is something that, you remember I told you how black and white people got together? That was something that the white people decided to do unofficially in order for a black representative to be there. You remember Delray did things uniquely. Nobody ever said that was a black seat. But the understanding was that there will be no white candidate that applied for that seat. But Al Jaquette, he changed all of that. That's what I'm saying. You can run for any seat you want in Delray, and I like it that way because we vote for everybody. I don't like these zones. I want to vote for everybody because my vote will count because I can vote for everybody. But yes, racism is still alive and well.
Very much so. I know I stepped out for a minute, but one of the things I want to bring to our attention, we're talking about schools and teaching. Do we realize that? Oh, is it on?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. One of the things that I want to inform or tell you about is that the majority of our children in this community is being bused out. No one is being bused in, but they're being bused out to other schools to meet their criteria as far as integration, desegregation, whatever. But we need to, and I've spoken with several other people. I do have my facts to back it up. And we need to talk about that more. We have Pine Grove Elementary School here. We have Village Academy here. We have children that live across the street from Village Academy, and they're bused to another school. In this community, our children are being bused to 4 different schools. And I'm talking about elementary schools. Yeah. Ms. Holliday said give you more, but with, you know, to talk about, this is what happened back when we integrated the school back then. They're still using our children to bus out to meet those criteria, and we need to have some, you know, we'll be talking about it further, and we'll have further discussion on it.
Miss Andrea Bruton.
Just a question, and all four of you can answer this as well. At what point did the black educators integrate the school?
Oh, I can answer that one.
When I first started in 1968, I was hired by a white man, Delray Elementary. But I never worked for him because they switched the administrators. They took the administrator from Poinciana and brought him, Mr. Balloon, to Delray Elementary, took Mr. Garvey from Delray Elementary to Poinciana. So they were trying to integrate staffs. Now, a lot of black administrators lost their principalships and were put back into classrooms or didn't have any jobs because there were administrators who had the idea that black teachers didn't have the intelligence to teach their little white children. Because the very first class I taught, 1968 at Delray Elementary, on open house, when the white parent found out I was black, she had her child removed from my class. So I'll never forget it. But they made the attempt because the forcing came after me. Because remember, my integration came in 61. They're talking about the 70s. Because there again, all the black folks was in little old Delray. Boca didn't have no black folks, you know. So they had to come to Delray to get black people. They divided those kids. Kids across the street from each other were going to different schools because they created what they would call SAC areas. And so they had to get some black folks from somewhere. And Delray was the closest place, and that's how they got there. And I remember my principal, Mr. Bath, his wife was one of those who patrolled those halls during those days at Boca High. And then when Spanish River came, there again, a certain section of black kids had to do Spanish River, Olympic Heights, because there's a large concentration. That's why y'all think there's so many of us. We all in the same area, but that was by law. But we only make up about 13% of the whole population of the United States, so, yeah.
There's a young man that lived here in Delray, lived in the same house his whole time of going to school. Believe it or not, he went to 7 different schools before he graduated high school.
Because they kept trying to get black folks to,
He went to Spady, he went to Delray Elementary, he went to Forest Park, he went to Rolling Green, he went to Boca Mill and Boca High. Yes, he's great.
Ms. Johnson, and then
First of all, I thank each and every one of you because you took me down memory lane, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. But it's very interesting to relive it. For those of you who don't know, unfortunately, I always wonder, why didn't they know? I don't know. It was not on TV, but nevertheless, I feel like I have an affinity with each of you. Miss Odom, you and I were in school together. We graduated together, class of 64, no matter which school you were in. Miss Walker, I don't quite know your age, so don't know.
First graduating class of Atlantic High School, 1971.
That's right, 1971. You just had your anniversary a couple of years ago.
50th anniversary.
50th anniversary, so I do remember now. Thank you. And the two of you, 1973.
1969.
your sister and I were in the class.
I was going to say my sister,
1974, Boca High.
74. I'd like everybody to think about it a minute. The Kansas v. Board was what, 1954?
Brown versus
Brown, I said, what did I say, Kansas v. 54 versus 20 years later. We're still trying to do it, and we still haven't done it. And Ms. Holliday, you and I were in the same class together a little bit more, maybe. I think you might be a little bit ahead of me in class, but anyway, I'd like to call a note to everybody who's in this room talking about the elections. This is the first election in the city of Delray Beach where you have 3 women of color running for the 3 open seats. So we're making progress. That one designated seat is no longer the only seat that anyone of color can go for. Now, I think we should get the men involved. Let's get some more men out here. So, okay. I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing with us this evening.
But I want to point out too, for those of you who live in Delray, you think about it. Our public schools are black, and you got thriving private schools, and many of those schools, and I don't want to put disparagement on anybody, religious schools who started to avoid integration. Just think about their dates that they started. Now, and many of them fine schools, and they will argue this point. But I've lived in this community my entire adult life, and our schools are still segregated. The public schools, the black kids go to, and the private religious schools where the white kids go. I'm just saying. And you make up it for what you want.
Good evening. First of all, thank you all. I love the stories that you told. I'm estimating over 300 years maybe of wisdom on this So here's my question though. You've seen a lot. You've experienced a lot. My question is, do you think black people would have been better off intentionally segregated, doing our own thing? We don't want to go to your schools, leave us alone. We build our business, we stay in our neighborhoods, but you don't come in our neighborhoods destroying, killing, burning things down. Do you think we would have been better off had we had that mentality versus integrating?
My answer is, yes, we would have been. But back then, parents were brainwashed that the white school was better. And come to find out, that's what destroyed our community. Because our kids wasn't into drugs back then. Our kids wasn't into carrying guns like they are now. They were carrying guns for protection because if they went anywhere, they were being called all kind of names. But when it was all black, they knew that your parent, you as a parent, could whip their butts and look there, was nothing gonna be said. And you could tell them, if you don't stop doing this or that, I'm going to your parent. But now, these younger parents have been, most of them went to these integrated schools where they felt, if you hit a child, that's child abuse. No, there's a way to hit a child. You hit a child when you leave scars on them. But discipline a child, a police officer told me this because my grandson stole a pack of chewing gum in Publix. And I took a pencil right there in front of the police and I beat his fingers. I said, you know better than to steal, but your hands don't. The Georgia police officer told me, that's a child I'll never have to be bothered with, and he haven't. So it was better back then, because kids knew they would be disciplined like any black parent, or any black adult, whether you're a parent or not. And that garbage that they tell about going to those other schools with more, I'll come to find out, our kids were twice as smart. Because we had teachers that didn't mind going to your house telling your parent that you didn't do your homework or you cut up in school. But these other parents, you don't even know they exist. Our kids don't even know what scholarships are being offered. Most of these kids don't even know their guidance counselor. Back then, they knew their guidance counselor.
I'm gonna disagree, because what I found, we're more alike than we are different. And values are seen in every community, and this is what I taught parents when I had conversations with them. Because the value that we had as black people, we just didn't appreciate what we had till we lost it, to answer your question. And I used to tell people, your child sitting next to a white kid not gonna make you smart. It's that teacher, because remember, after 10th grade, I had no black teachers, 0. Did I have some good ones? Absolutely. White teachers. But there were some black teachers that I wouldn't want my kid to be in either. Do you understand? That's what I mean about getting to know that person. Because were we better off if we had stayed segregated? I can't answer that. But I remember there were a lot of prominent black leaders who felt strongly that their children would be better off in white schools. And when they got there, then they realized it was not so much better. It's just almost what's happening with our HBCUs now. It took a football coach to make us realize how the FAMUs, the Bethune-Cookmans, the Howard Universities, who are educating more black people than any white schools. But we didn't believe it. I'm saying what I know, because I've heard what white people say. And even now, I look at that little league field we have out there, where I know somebody who's a better baseball coach than anybody in the country. But because it's an all-black program, people think you don't know what you're doing. And that's still the case. And that's why conversations like this is utterly important. Okay? And there's a lot of black people I don't want to be around. But there's a whole lot of white people I don't want to be around either. So get to know who that person is, and this is what I used to tell parents. You learn who your kid is, because remember now, band parents, they get along. All the football players get along. If you're a cheerleader, black or white. But you know what else too? The little dope dealers, black or white. Dope smokers, they circle with. So understand who your parents' kids are and who your kids are, hanging around. And I used to tell people this, and told my children, if your little white friends can't come to your house, you're not going to theirs. I want to know who the parents are, just like you want to know, because white people have a problem sending their kids to a birthday party in a black neighborhood of your classmate. Now you'll invite 2 or 3 of your little black friends to your child party, but when it's time for your child to go to a party in a black neighborhood, you have a problem with it. Because we are all lumped, and we're the only race that's lumped to the worst of us. If somebody see him rob somebody, the next man you see, you think he's gonna be a robber. And that's the reality. And I'm just telling you, because my son had to live through it, my husband had to live through it. And if you've never lived through that, understand we're telling the truth. That's why police officers need to understand that unconsciously, they will make a judgment just based on somebody's skin tone, or the fact they have dreads. Because I've had to live through that with my son. And having conversations like this will help all of us to be better. But yeah, I wouldn't say we were better off. I disagree with that. But we realize that what we've had, even with the discarded books, that we learned a whole lot. And we thought the grass was greener, and we found out that our own grass was pretty green. That's all it was.
And Bob, you can stop us when you want to. We do have one other hand.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we've done more. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susan from All People's Day. You're talking about should we have people integrate? Is integration better than segregation? Was a question. In 1973, I made up a holiday called All People's Day. And I had a party in my house this first year, inviting people from all different cultures, all different races, all different sizes, all different shapes, all different heights. We now have our 15th All People's Day Diversity Festival happening right here at Pompey Park. So I agree with Mrs. Odom that talking and getting to know people from different cultures is an experience that can elevate your mind, because there are lots of people who have never spoken or really been involved with people from different cultures. They live in their own little pockets. When my husband and I first came here 16 years ago, we went to every festival we could find, because in New Jersey we started our first All People's Day Festival. And I found that we were the only ones. We went to the Mexican festival. Everyone's Mexican but us. We went to the African American festivals. Everyone was African. So I asked somebody from each of those places to come to my festival that would connect them. And the first year that we had it right here, we had almost 300 people. People told me downtown, oh, no white people will come to Pompey Park. It's the black area. I said, you watch. Yeah. You just watch. So just like every other person that talked, Mrs. Holliday and Mrs. Stacey Wright and Mrs. Walker and Mrs. Odom, you gotta keep going. And people learn about each other. Ours is through the arts. The arts touch people's hearts. People start seeing people, and they tell me when they come to the festival, everybody's so friendly here, even though they're from different places. How come? Well, because that's the whole idea. So thank you so much for your discussions. It's so important to hear more and more about what happened to you, because that's what's happening to kids today. Yes. Their own way. And it's important for them to know that you were there and you got past it, and so will they. Thank you very much.
Hi, so I set up for the Democratic Club with Delray Beach kind of every month, the tech stuff. And so we have a meeting every month, and just between you and me and the camera, I'm not always thrilled about going to some of these. You know, I like them, but this one I was looking forward to a lot. Because I really, I moved into Delray, 8 years ago. I don't know the history. Some of you know my mom, Marion, who was here, who formed the Democratic Club of Delray Beach, along with Mary and a couple of others. And so my parents met at like a Henry Wallace for president rally. So, they were fairly left wing. And so I was raised, I went to the Civil Rights March when I was 10. They took me and we picketed Woolworths. So in 1970, when I headed off to Stony Brook for my freshman year, and the black kids wanted their own dorm, and I'm saying, no, that's not what we're supposed to do. But they wanted their own dorm. And what the gentleman here said was kind of on key there. And of course I talked to my mother about it, and she said, oh, thanks. And she said, basically people are really tribal. Not just black, white, but within their own group within that. And it's hard to overcome. and that people need to be together in order to overcome this. So, you know, I love the whole topic tonight, and your People's Day is amazing. I'm not doing an advertisement for her, I didn't plan on it.
You just did.
But you know, the cultural things they have are wonderful, the cultural performances, and the food's great.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so, anyway, it's a whole interesting question of whether, I'm not really leading up to a question, I guess, but, you know, one of the things of black schools or white schools, whether it's better to go to white schools, is simply because they get more resources. And they get better books. They don't get, you know, discarded books. And so, you know, separate but equal was exactly what you said. It's not equal. And so, you know, I don't know the answer. If I did, you know, we'd have good answers. But I'm glad you came. I'm glad this whole thing came together.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Another question?
Another question.
I just have a quick statement.
Oh, thanks.
I was just going to say, everything that everyone has said tonight is so heartwarming. And one of the things that stayed with me early on in my life, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 16 years, so I learned a lot the way you guys did. Let me just say this, we're taught to be a melting pot. We will never be a melting pot. We are vegetable soup sharing the broth. That's what we are. We will never be a melting pot. That's reality. It doesn't matter what our values, ethnicity, backgrounds, or anything. We have our clusters, our families, our groups, tribes, whatever you want to call it. But we have to realize we share the same broth. That is what we have to remember every day. Thank you, each one of you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to everyone here. I'm Dr. Caesar. I know most of these ladies at the, I know all of these ladies at the table. Went to school with some, so I've experienced, I know their experiences because I've experienced this as well. I've had some horrible and horrific racial experiences happen to me. But one thing it does not do, and you should not let it do, is to make you bitter. I don't care how horrific it was, because you have to remember, you grow from those horrific experiences, no matter, you know, you will grow from them. I just wanted to say tonight, well, I was in management for 35 years, and I've had staff who would come to me, staff of other persuasions, who would come to me and ask me the most basic of questions about the differences between blacks and whites. Some were so off the wall, but that's what they knew. That's what they were told. And I'm not talking about just the young ones, I'm talking about older ones as well. And these types of conversations, as Ms. Odom has repeatedly said, are very valuable. Because there are little things that you have in the back of your head, and I'm talking about everyone here, who are misnomers. They do not adequately describe the person that you're sitting and talking with, okay? We have to have conversations where we sit down and be raw. I thought this conversation tonight was somewhat raw, but much needed, much needed. So I hope no one was offended. I hope not. But if you were, hopefully you'll start to rethink your position and you'll make better use of the future than you have of the past. So thank you to the panel. Thank you to the Democratic Club. This is my first meeting. I am blessed to be here tonight, and I really appreciate what has gone on in this place tonight. Thank you so much.
I just want to say, you're correct. Bitterness is really the field that blocks you from going further. After my incident with Boca High School, I did not allow bitterness or anything else to enter into my life. I was more determined to show them that I will graduate. I will make it out of here. I was a AB student at Boca High School. And I was determined just to say, no, I am somebody. My mom told me I am somebody, and I am somebody very important. And the only way you're gonna know is that I show you that I'm very important. And I continue with that even today. I do not allow stumbling blocks in my way. I use those boulders and those blocks to just continue to walk over, to take me to higher heights, because you keep building up all of the stumbling blocks, all of the trials and tribulations that I've gone through. It's only made me stronger in my belief. And my belief is that I am somebody, and I know that I am somebody.
We have to teach our children that no matter what your background is, you can always overcome. And the only way we can overcome is by continuing telling them, you are somebody. You're black, you're beautiful, you're loved, and you are somebody.
Commissioner Burns, just some housekeeping. We're still going. It's 20 to 9. We still got plenty of time. So still encouraging all your questions and input. Just some housekeeping. Wanted to introduce a couple of additional candidates who were not introduced earlier. Candidate for Palm Beach County State's Attorney, Alexia Cox. And candidate for seat 1, Delray Beach City Commission, Jim Char. And again, I want to encourage this dialogue to continue, and as you're killing it. You're killing it. You did everything that I expected and more. And Commissioner Burns, just a wonderful job of moderating. Thank you. Thank you for that. I want to share one small piece of the organizing conversation we had over lunch last week when trying to be, glib. Those who know me know that I sometimes try a little too hard at that. And saying how you're asking the question, why should there be a Black History Month and not a Black History 12 months? Why do we have to spike out a special time? And why aren't we always talking about that? And Mrs. Odom was gracing me by sitting next to me, and she said, we already know our history. It's for you folks. It's for you folks that we do this. I hope I'm not embarrassing this one. You set me straight, and thank you for that. And it is quintessentially important that we take the time to understand these essential and often not spoken about elements of Black history, of American history, of the gifts of women and what they have brought throughout American history, throughout world history, and most certainly in American Black history. So we still have time. This is your chance to learn. I'm still learning, right? I'm 66 years old, grew up in the projects in Brooklyn, thought I knew everything. Thought I was just like Mr. Cool, Mr. Diverse. I didn't know a damn thing. So, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning tonight. Thanks for these lovely women. So let's keep going.
I grew up in Pennsylvania, and we always had public kindergarten. And we moved, an aside, it was either 1966 or 1968, we went to the Atlantic City, and I'm trying to remember, the Traymore Hotel was on the boardwalk, and it had a sign that said, "No blacks, Jews, or dogs allowed." And we were Jewish,
Good company.
and I was shocked, but I just wondered, when did public kindergarten start in Florida? Because it didn't start in Virginia till 1967.
Oh, I can tell that because my daughter Joy would have been a poster child for it. I was a teacher, and the white people voted to have half days. And I'm a working mama. I don't need a half day kindergarten. Most of them was home. And so, you know, I had to pay for daycare again. So that would have been maybe about early 70s, I suppose. But,
Yeah, 1970.
yeah, I only because it was personal to me, because my kid needed to be in school all day. She didn't need to be in school a half a day. What I was gonna do the other half, okay? But I appreciate your conversation, but we need to continue to talk. And I could tell you some inside jokes and understand this as I talked to white kids when I was in their those 3 years of things that they believed about me, that we had tails. Oh, yeah. And I was in the shower, and one of my misconceptions, and I can say it, because aren't we all adults in here?
Yes.
Okay, y'all know most black people got black hair, right? So I'm thinking black hair supposed to be everywhere. But you got red hair, and you got blondes, and the hair was blonde, and also blonde somewhere else. So I was like, oh my God. Anyway, misconception. And the other thing about suntan, you know, whether or not we burn, and I just tried to explain to them, it's just like blondes and brunettes. A blonde can burn more easily than a brunette. Black folks, because our skin is dark, we can tolerate the sun a little bit longer than you. But stay out there long enough, yeah, we gonna get burned. And my nose started peeling one time. We were outside on a speech class, and I went around and just took my nose and showed it to all the white kids and let them know that's a sunburn. So anyway, that was an inside joke, the pubic hair.
Dr. C, oh, she left. Dr. C was worried about the content, but she left already.
Try to keep it clean, keep it clean.
Yes.
I have a question more so for Ms. Wright and Ms. Odom. I remember back, you can help educate folks here who don't know how Village Academy came about. In fact, I was a reporter here back in the mid to early 80s. And I remember covering schools, white schools, black schools, where the books were from, as someone said, rejected, or back in the 1970s. In fact, they had books that were made in Heathrow. Heathrow was a press that came from London. So those were the old books that were discarded that they had. Meanwhile, the white school had books from Harper Million and some other companies. You see where I'm going with this. Village Academy was started to address some of the discrepancies they had back then. Can you explain to them how that came about, please?
Chuck Ridley, which most of you know, was so aggravated because his daughter would come home complaining, "I'm tired of having to go all the way to Boca to school. Why we gotta go to Boca when we have schools here?" And that is really his baby. If you talk to Chuck, Chuck is a Village Academy cheerleader. He got someone that had some money
Art Koback
that
from Taylor Shoe
didn't mind investing in this project. And I am one of the first volunteers. I remember him interviewing me when he was with the Sun Center and the Boca News. way back when he first came here. And people don't know that the kids that went to Village Academy was happy that they didn't have to get on a bus. Because they didn't have to get up quite as early.
Folks oftentimes ask, it's the only K through 12 school, in fact, birth through 12 in the southern part of the United States. There's only two in the country, Harlem Children's Zone in New York and Village Academy. People always say, is that a private school? Is that a charter school? No, it's a public school. Not only is it a public school, in fact, we have babies. What is it? A couple months?
Yeah, it's from the cradle to college. That's the thing. Cradle to college.
There was a time, in fact, after about 3 years, when Mr. Kobacker was supporting the school, helping Ms. Burns. He passed away, and folks petitioned the Palm Beach County school system to take the school over. Every year they added a grade, and that went on. But now it's what, 12th grade? I remember there was a time when the school district was trying to make an attempt to dissolve Village Academy. And some of you guys probably remember Ted Copper from Nightline. Yes. Andrea Copper worked for WP, the one in Miami, Channel 10 in Miami. And she went to Channel 25 here first. And then she told her daddy around Thanksgiving dinner, I was there, she said, Daddy, can you believe that in Palm Beach County, this is what they're going through? And he sent a man down, Martin Phillips came down, and they did a story, and they had, the headline was, two separate but equal, two schools, same district, two sets of schools. And Ted Copper, Nightline, was the one that blew it out. That's how Village Academy is where it is today. Otherwise, the Palm Beach County School would have dissolved it.
Wow. We still have people we still have locals trying to dissolve it. Village Academy, it's a small school setting, and the idea was not to bus kids to 15 different schools outside of the city, but to have a home school that could have a lower teacher-pupil ratio. So that we could attend to those children that had those learning disabilities and that were falling through the cracks being shipped out. I've worked at Village Academy for 23 years, and there are some hardworking teachers there, but no resources, no support from the district, no support from our city, and many other things will probably, and the kids leave. The kids leave because there's no resources, so they want to go to schools where they can get into different programs. The school district only Village Academy has 0 to 12. They only recognize one, they either recognize it as an elementary, a middle, or a high school. You can't do that because they have all grades. So the funding, we don't get. They don't get. I keep saying we. I retired. They don't get. So it does suffer, but it's not suffering any more than any other school. The enrollment is down, but we need people to fight for Village Academy, and I am one of them that will always fight until I don't have any breath in me for Village Academy, so that we can have our students, our children attend school in their own neighborhoods and have teachers that care about their successful education.
I think one of the problems that I see, that I hear, is that they think that.
Use the microphone.
One of the problems that I see not with Village Academy, but what the community conception of Village Academy is that, it's the school, you send bad kids to, or, kids that can't learn, you just send them over there.
That was the perception at the very beginning.
Right.
I started at Village Academy the second year that it was open, and what happened is principals from schools that had children that had learning disabilities or behavior issues, they were encouraging the parents, oh, there's a new school in Delray, take your kid there. So the first 2 years, Village Academy got every kid that every other school did not want. So many people were under the impression that it was a special ed school, but it was just a regular Palm Beach County School District. It is a choice program, which means that you have to have an application to go, and there's a waiting list because the teacher-pupil ratio in elementary was 12-1. And then it opened, as Mr. Allen said, it opened as a K-2 school, and then we added a grade every year until it got to 12th grade. So, and then once we got middle school, it was like 1 to 14, 15, and then high school is 1 to 18 or 19, to keep the teacher-pupil ratio very low. However, that it did get that reputation in the beginning, but you know, we have a compact, and parents have to be responsible, students have to be responsible. So those children were being sent back to their SAC school and their home school, and it took a couple of years to get that all ironed out, but they did get that reputation in the beginning.
I want to add and think about it, because I taught all my years right here in Delray, and being at Carver, and I'm just saying it like it is, when a school is all black or close to being 80%, the perception is a bad school. You don't know anything about the school. We opened Carver, and every time somebody say, oh, you teach at Carver, it was like I said, it was a plague. And Village has that same plague, and that's what we need to talk about. It's not the programs, because those of us who work at these schools, we know what kind of school it is.
Absolutely.
You don't know. But that's the perception, and it's still that today. You might not know anything about Carver, but a lot of black kids go there. So it's got to be a bad school. That's it. And when these letter grades came out, which is the biggest farce played on education since they came out. Oh, my school, my kid go to A school. That don't mean your kid is an A student. And they do not test all of the schools. And they only do a certain test of limited students. They don't talk about the band, they don't talk about the cheerleaders, they don't talk about the clubs, none of that, except this test that Jeb Bush and his brothers decided, because they make a lot of money printing these tests. You have to look behind that. I'm so glad I got educated about it, because it was something that I just hated, having a letter grade put by a school. And I knew for a fact that all the kids are not tested. And now they use it to sell homes. They real estate people, they tout that this is an A-rated school. And just understand, what does that mean? An A-rated school. They don't test all the kids, and only a select few are tested. Then you might have one little knucklehead, and that's said out of love, who can be counted in 5 categories, one kid, because he's black, he's on free and reduced lunch, he's in special ed, and 2 or 3 other things.
And he's a he.
And he's a he. And so his test scores gonna be in every category. Now on the other hand, you might want to have blue-eyed blonde, whose dad is a physician, and mama is a stay-at-home mom, and she could be counted in 5 territories. And if you don't have enough kids in that category, you don't even be counted. And I got a rude awakening one time. I was in a meeting at Spanish River High School. Spanish River High School had so few blacks there. By those kids' names, they had an NA, meaning not applicable. That means the teachers didn't even have to bother to teach those kids, because they weren't going to count in the letter grade. And the opposite went for Carver, because we had so few white kids, the white kids could not be counted in the letter grade. So understand what that means when you're talking about your kid going to an A-rated school. The biggest farce that ever been played in public education. And now we got these voucher situations where people are leaving public schools by droves, because now, whether you make $100,000 a year or $1 million, you can get a voucher to send your kid to whoever private school you want to do. Y'all better wake up. And black people, y'all are being used like you wouldn't believe. Because to make you look legitimate, they want to have so many black folks. So they can't say that they're prejudiced. So they go and pick the best ones And then when they tired of you and have the money that goes along with you, now you do something wrong, you no longer are accepted at the school, and I think it's best that you go back to your home school. But now I got the money, and the money does not follow the child. Understand what's happening to public education, please.
Going back to Village Academy, it's a small school, but they have 100% graduation. And some of these kids that graduated from Village that I know that I volunteered with, some of them are doctors, some of them are attorneys, some of them are the best social workers that people say, oh, that's the best social worker. And they go get their masters in nursing. There's a young lady who was in the first graduating class from Village Academy. She's now a nurse practitioner. That's just an example.
I want to change the subject for a moment. I want to talk about Saturday, February 17th. We do have in the gymnasium here at Pompey Park from 10 to 4 a I Am Black History program, which we will be talking about local African Americans. However, on the opposite side over here in the auditorium, we will be having voter registration, education, and celebration. And in that program, we're going to have the League of Women Voters here. We're going to have the Supervisor of Elections Office here. I have a group that does voter registration. So we will be here from 10 to 4 on Saturday, and you will be entertained because we have the senior Pompey Park Divas, the junior Pompey Park Divas, and the Achievement Center has some high steppers. So I have 3 different dance groups coming on Saturday. We had an essay contest on why voting is important. I had 24 students from Atlantic, Village, Brax, school I had never heard of, that all sent their entries in. So we have 24 essays that will be displayed on Saturday, and we'll have snacks and refreshment. So please, if you got time Saturday, stop by and see us.
And I just want to say thank you to everybody for coming out. This has been great. Thank you for allowing us to just share a snippet. This is just a snippet of some of the things that we've experienced. Thank you to the Democratic Club again for inviting us out. This has been great, and we just need to do more of these, more and more. So thank you.
And with that, we are at 9 o'clock, and I have already been told by our good friends here at Pompey Park that nice to have you, get out. So thank you all for your attention, thank you all for your engagement, and
I'll tell you one thing.
Okay, you know what he told? I'm gonna take it.
There's always something going on.
What's that girl? We gotta get her in there.
So we actually just got to take this on board, and we just got connected.